Nothing is true. Everything is permitted.
Hey guys, weird happening here. About 2 weeks ago I was feeling off, like I was going to have a heart attack or going to pass out or throw up. I don't have insurance at the moment, so I decided I would sleep it off. My daughter's favourite toy was on the couch when I came out to the living room. It is a blue dinosaur plushie. She takes everywhere with her. Well, I scooted it over on the couch and started watching TV, hoping I would pass out. I grabbed her toy and had it in my hands to distract me. I eventually fell asleep and woke up the next day. My girlfriend and kid were gone, and I got up to get some water. I looked down on the floor and thought, shit, she forgot her toy, she's gonna have a fit. Then it hit me. Instead of the dark blue toy I see all the time, it was bright green. Now, I'm not crazy. She's had it for a year now, and when I had asked her, what should we name it, I even said we should name it Blue. She throws a fit about the toy constantly and says, I want my blue dinosaur, I want my blue dinosaur. So I know for a fact this thing was blue. I thought maybe she had a second dinosaur similar, and I'm not crazy. Then my girlfriend calls me asking if her toy was still at home. I asked, the blue dinosaur? She replied, no, the green one she has all the time. I said, well, what about the blue one? To which she responded, there is no blue one. What are you talking about? My head started to spin. I started reading online about theories on our consciousness, traveling to another dimension when we die, because I admit, I was having a bit of death anxiety after that night. I usually have panic attacks or anxiety, but this was way different. Anyways, I started looking into theories about souls and consciousness, and came across that one and how it lays within the parameters of infinite universes, and small things in people's lives changing after an accident, near-death experience, etc. I'm not convinced I died, but something weird definitely happened that night, and now I have this bright green dino making me question everything I know. Just for clarification, I have not had COVID recently. I don't have any gas in my home. My water heater is gas, but it's outside in a closed area. And I have a CO2 detector in my apartment, so I think I'm solid regarding that. And I don't take any medications or anything of the sort. Now, I was never the type of guy that believed in parallel universes or multiple dimensions. But after a strange experience and years of research, I have begun to wonder about the possibilities of such things existing. My change in mind occurred after a strange experience 5 years ago. I remember that date clear, 6th of September 2016. It was the day after I had moved into my new house, which I still live in today. It's a fairly old house and I've experienced many odd things, though those are different stories. The home was built 1974 to 1976 and was completed in late September of that year. It's had a few owners, one of which was my father's former boss. It's been kept in very good condition and retains many of its original features. Right, the story goes like this. It was our second day in the house, and our first night in the house I woke up early, around 7 p.m-ish, to help unpack boxes and our items. We were also moving items out of the house which belonged to the previous owner. I was loading a box labelled silverware from our old green car, which was a 1995 Honda Odyssey. The box was heavy and I lost some grip on the box. Luckily, I have a quick reflex and quickly reacted and nudged the box back into my hands using my knee to prevent myself from dropping it. It was when I looked up again, things appeared differently. The first thing, which was hard for me not to notice considering the box was right in front of my eyes, was the word silverware. It had completely been replaced with the word records and books in a vivid black. I was confused at first and simply dismissed it as my bad eyesight. It was not until I leant down to place the box down on the lawn temporarily to close the car door that I realized that something was completely different, and it wasn't my eyes playing up. The car, the distinctive green 1995 Odyssey, was gone, and instead was replaced with a red Ford pickup truck. In complete utter shock, I quickly hurried into the house to find my father. I don't know why, and have no clue what I would have told him. When I hurried into the hall, I spotted a figure walking into my parents' bedroom. He was tall and young, maybe 35 to 45 in years, and around 5'8". He wore a brown suit. It almost looked like a tweed suit. He himself hurried down the hall quickly, so I quickly followed this man in confusion. When I walked down the hall, I noticed the carpet was cleaner, and a stain I had noticed earlier near my bedroom was gone. Perhaps if I hadn't been in such a frenzy, I would have noticed other changes. Anyways, I swiftly walked into my father's room. It was right at that moment when everything went back to normal. The man disappeared and boom, I nearly toppled my father as I walked right into him when entering his room in which the man had entered. We were so close I could feel his breath. "Whoa, buddy, slow down." I remember him clearly state. He was clearly as confused as I was. When I told him what I saw, we both walked outside, and there the green Odyssey sat, parked under our willow tree, the box where I left it, and the car door open. My father quickly dismissed the situation. I cannot explain what occurred in those brief moments, and probably will never fully understand what occurred on that warm September day. My father doesn't have an explanation for what happened that day. He recounts that day as well. From his perspective, he remembers clearing some boxes, standing near the sliding doors of his bedroom when he saw the same man walking away from the door. I find it odd that the man was walking in two completely opposite directions. He got curious and followed, in which then I came storming in, falling into my dad's chest. I've told my family multiple times this story. None really believe me. It has sort of become a dinner table story for them. I truly believe I was briefly transported into a different era. I can't confirm it, and perhaps if I had a phone back then, I could have taken a photo or two. I was 15. My parents were the type of parents who disapproved of young teens having phones. Whether it was a time slip, a glitch in the matrix, or my mind playing tricks, this experience will remain in my memories for years. I saw my dead father driving a car. I was 11 at the time he died. When I was a kid, he would tell me that once I got taller, he'd get me to play 8-ball pool with him. This never happened because he died before I was even 5'4". Fast forward to last Saturday night. I was playing 8-ball pool with my friends. At one moment, the memory of him telling me that once I got tall, he'd get me to play with him crossed my mind, and I sort of wished we would have got to play. Didn't pay much attention though. On our way back to our homes, being on foot, we were walking on the road but made room for cars to pass whenever they approached us. Once we were about 3 blocks away from my house, I saw a car passing, with my father as the driver. I'm so sure it was him. I've seen his dead body, so he can't be alive. And even if he was, why would he be driving in our neighborhood? I almost screamed and wanted to start running so as to catch the car, but I figured out it would be pointless. I even thought of throwing my phone at the car so as to catch his attention. I kind of regret it now. I'm not sure. Honestly, it's not like I miss him like hell and think of him 24/7, so I don't think my mind would make this up. Anyone experienced anything similar? I should be dead, but I woke up and things are different. I dreamt I was in a car accident on February 20th, 2022. I was driving down a bendy back road I take when traffic gets bad. No one takes it besides some older locals because it's out of the way and, when the weather's bad, dangerous. This country road follows along a steeper hill, which, at the bottom, is a river. Maybe 25-30 feet at its deepest point. I've fished there off and on since I was a kid. We had a small storm roll in on the 20th. It wasn't forecast, nor had I seen any clouds that suggested the weather shift. It was sudden, and I was on the back road. I was on my way home from work, almost 5 p.m. when the weather finally shifted. I didn't think much of it. I'd driven in worse. A lot worse, actually. But I still slowed down a bit as I rounded the sharper curves in the road. I had my favorite playlist going, one my partner and I made together a few months into our relationship. Her favorite song was playing, Eugene by Arlo Parks. I was in the second to final curve in the road when it happened. A big Ford truck, an F-150, flew around the curve, his headlights on high as he came into my lane. I remember jerking the steering wheel. I remember the force of the truck hitting the front driver's side of my car and sending me spinning. I remember the screech of metal on metal as I slammed into the guardrails. I remember not having control over my shitty old 2008 Mazda Tribute. My car smacked into trees and through vegetation as it tumbled and rolled down the hill before it finally splashed into the river. It took me several seconds to come to realize I was sinking and that water was flooding my car. I tried moving. I knew I needed to get out and fast, but my legs were pinned by the steering wheel. My jeans were torn and I could see the muscle and bone of my thighs. I remember trying to get myself free, pushing against the wheel, grabbing onto the passenger seat and pulling myself and screaming at the pain it caused. I remember looking through my cracked windshield and seeing the water just beginning to darken as my car sank. The water was rising in my car. It was freezing cold against my skin. I kept trying to get free, to force the steering wheel to move, to pull my legs out from under it. I remember thinking of my partner, of my brothers, my niece, of my father, of the kids I work with. I remember thinking, this is how I'm going to die, without saying goodbye. That's when I looked for my phone. It was in my cup holder before the crash. By the time I found it, it was on the passenger's side floor. I reached for that damn thing for what felt like ages, but couldn't have been longer than a few seconds. By some miracle, the screen lit up when I pressed the power button. I remember the relief that flooded my chest when it did. At this point, the water was moving up past my waist. I called my partner, but it went to voicemail. It made me want to cry, but I spoke anyway. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about the water, or the pain, or the cold. All I could think about was her. I told her I wasn't going to make it to dinner, and that I was sorry. I told her I wished I could make it up to her someday, but that I wasn't sure I'd get a chance to. I told her I loved her more than anything in this world. Something I've always said. I told her I wish I had gotten a chance to show her the Grand Canyon, a trip we had talked about for months. That I wanted to see her, get another chance to hold her. I wanted to say so much more, but the line beeped and the call ended as the water reached my neck. I remember crying to myself, trying to think of something else I could do to get out of this, to survive. But the water kept rising, and in the end, I simply stared up through it at the faint flashing light at the surface, blue and red. I prayed as the air began fighting to escape my lungs, as the pain pulsed through my skull and chest. I prayed until I couldn't anymore. I prayed until my vision went black and I couldn't fight to hold my breath any longer. And then I woke up, alone in bed, freezing with a cold sweat, but awake and confused. I don't know how or why I am here, because I died. I felt my body die. I felt the water enter my lungs and the pain that it caused. I felt it all. From the first impact of the truck, to my legs being pinned, to drowning. I shouldn't be here. This happened several years ago at a TGI Fridays in Killeen, Texas. I was eating with my family when we saw our friend Jesse sitting at the bar across the restaurant. Jesse is easy to spot, with broad shoulders and a distinct widow's peak, and he was even wearing a green striped shirt, such as he often wore. We called out to him, but he didn't hear us. Some guy he was sitting with noticed and told him we were trying to get his attention. So Jesse started walking towards us, and it was only when he came within about 10 feet of us did I realize it really wasn't him. He was almost identical, but not quite. Of course, this poor guy looked very confused to be summoned to a table full of strangers. Embarrassed, I apologized and explained that we had thought he was our friend Jesse. He was understanding, but then explained that his name was Jesse. So it had been extra confusing that we seemed to know him, but he didn't know us. It was some time later that we were eating again at TGI Fridays, when I caught sight of a server and immediately smiled and raised my hand to greet her. I knew her very well, not as a server, but as someone significant enough in my life that I'd actually hung out with. As she seemed to look right through me, I put my hand down and figured I was wrong. But I was so confused because the feeling had been so strong that I knew who she was. It drove me crazy, but there was nothing I could do. She turned out to be our server. She took my dad's order first, and then when she turned to me, her eyes widened and she said, "I know you. How do I know you?" We went through every possible scenario we could think of and never could figure out how our paths had crossed. And I can guarantee you, they just had not. We covered all bases, and even if we had passed each other in a store or something, it would not explain the intense familiarity we both felt. I begin to joke about the mysticism of that particular TGI Fridays. After the double Jesse experience, two friends of mine, each in an unrelated event, encountered other doubles and told me about it. I told them we were going to start calling it Doppelganger Fridays. Of course, this all seems like pure coincidence, but it's just interesting that it keeps happening at the same place. I've had a few experiences where I'm convinced I glitched, but this recent one freaked me out. Let's start with, I do no drugs, not weed, nothing. I do not even drink. I have to let you know this because the story makes me feel like I should have been. I have lived in my neighborhood for 43 years. I take the same route to and from every day. As a child, my mother walked us to school on this route. So needless to say, I know every street in the neighborhood. About 3 months ago, I had to go to work, so I went to the Little Caesars, got my pizzas and my daughter, and I headed home. This is where it got unexplainable. I'm heading down, making it about 2 streets, and suddenly, there are buildings on those streets that I've never seen in my life. Then, the one factory-like building, I see these men in weird hats and suspenders, unloading an old truck. But the truck looked very new. Basically a truck from the 20s. I keep driving, then I notice another factory, and these other men in the same type of clothes are unloading milk bottles. I look at my daughter and say, WTF. I pull over and get on my GPS. My GPS tells me I'm in the exact street I'm supposed to be on. So I put the GPS in the holster and make it a point to look at the streets. The street said the right name, so I was exactly where I knew I was. I get to the main roads and tell her we're going to turn around and head back the way we came. We make a left, and I turn around under the bridge, and as soon as I do that, everything is normal. My street is there, the factories are gone, it's just normal. During these strange happenings, I felt a weird uneasiness in the air. I was literally terrified, like when someone is watching you. My GPS had a lot of static, and my maps even looked weird. I don't know. Like I said, I have had other events, but this one definitely lasted the longest. I often drive that route on purpose now to make sense of what happened to us, but I've yet to get an explanation. The funny thing is, where I live back in the day, there were indeed a lot of factories in the city. I found pages about glitches and stuff like that, and had I not had this one last as long as it did, I would think someone like me was crazy or had some kind of narcotic or was drunk. I don't know. Maybe I will be so lucky again to experience this, because next time I'm stopping and asking what year or place I'm in, and getting a flyer or something as proof that there's a glitch in this place we call life. My partner and I are visiting Oakland, California. It's our first day in town. We're walking around, window shopping and checking out the area when a random man approaches us. "Hey, how's your visit gone?" We assumed he was a homeless man just being kind, and with us being from the Midwest, it's probably not hard to tell we're not from the area. We respond with a generic, "Our day's been fine, thanks. And yours?" I can't remember the exact words said, but after answering, he stated that he met us yesterday. We laughed and said it wasn't possible. It's our first day in town. You must have confused us with someone else. He responded, "No, it was you two. You guys gave me an orange and we chatted for a few minutes." That definitely sounds like something we might do. But seriously, we had only just got into town. It definitely wasn't us. The man then proceeded to tell my partner, "You're from Missouri. You're wearing a blue Kansas City shirt." He said a couple of other things, but I was in shock, so I don't remember what he said after that. Anyways, this was accurate information. He had that exact shirt. He wasn't wearing it that day, but it was one that he wore all the time. We still, to this day, have no idea what that was. It makes my head hurt thinking about it. I went for a hike a couple of days ago, and I think I may have shifted, or am, in between two realities since. I think the shift happened in the woods. I swore I saw my sister's dog run over a hill in the distance and not come back, so I'm calling for her. My sister and dad ask me what I am doing. The dog is right in front of us, and always has been. I tell them what I saw and we laugh it off, that I saw what was happening in another reality. But nothing's been the same since. Like, my mum has been extra different to me. I'm visiting for a week. I live in a different state than my hometown. I asked for cupcakes, and she, for the first time ever, got dairy-free ones for me. I've been dairy-free for 8 years. Washed a towel and bedding for me with fragrance-free detergent. I've been using fragrance-free for 8 years, etc. My niece has been extra clingy to me, like crying that I'm leaving, while the last few times I've visited, she was just like, "Okay, bye." So besides anything feeling different since hiking in the woods, I saw a bug in my bathroom on the radiator. I went to pick it up with a random bottle, and I swear to God, the minute the bottle touched the bug disappeared. That's why I'm wondering if I'm stuck or transitioning or something, where I'm seeing parts of one universe while being in another. Is this possible? I know it seems crazy. Is there any way to know? Anything I should worry about? This has happened several times when hiking in a specific general area, about 10,000 acres, in New Hampshire, US. Looking at my watch or noticing the position of the sun in the sky is hours later in the day than it should be. I can't explain the lost time. This area was settled by Abenaki in the old times. There is at least one artifact, bowl carved in a rock ledge near a waterfall, that was recorded by archaeologists. An Indian trail is shown on old maps. I found petroglyphs, and I suspect graves and other things. The area was settled by Europeans for a time, but they all left or died. There are only cellar holes and cemeteries now. It's all gone back to woods. There is a lot of iron in the bedrock. Compasses don't always work right. It seems to me that lightning hits some of the hills much more often than is typical. though I'm not any kind of expert in that field. I am experienced in hiking and camping in the woods. The amount of lightning scars on the trees is crazy in my opinion. I don't drink or use drugs, and I have never had lost time in any other place. Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. As always, a big thank you to all of the Reddit users who kindly allowed me to use their stories. If you want to help support this channel, you will find links to both my Patreon and my Teespring store in the description below, so feel free to have a look. And the biggest thank you to all of you who continue to support me. I truly do appreciate it. And remember,
Papa loves you.